Alright everybody, MTG Metalhead here for you from MTG Archives. I just want to do a video talking about the announcement that they did during the Pro Tour about the changes for Standard and kind of what their plans are to try to revitalize Standard, because as many of us competitive players, or at least those of us who have been around for a long while in the competitive scene know, Standard was kind of the choice du jour of a lot of the major events for Magic that led to Pro Tours, and that the Pro Tours featured. We would have a few of them each year being some Eternal formats, but most of the time it was Standard that was being showcased. So it's kind of exciting and also kind of scary to kind of see what changes are coming down the pipeline. And I only say scary because for those of us who are really invested in older formats, it's a little bit of a sting, because it means that we are going to be more focused back on Standard again instead of those formats maybe that we enjoy a little bit more. But at the same time, it's kind of just going back to the way things were, or at least starting to go in that direction. So nothing too terrible about that, just something that we kind of have to get used to and recalibrate to. In any case, I just want to kind of go over what the announcement said, what I think of it, what I think it's going to mean for the future of Magic, for Standard, competitive play, all of that. What we're going to do is just really talk about what was announced. Essentially, there was a few things that they put out there, and they do say it in the video, but you can also just talk about it here. So basically, let's start up here, for the local play store, which many of us play a lot in the local play stores, and our F&M grinders too. So this is going to be really impactful for us. It says in February, alongside the launch of Murders of Karlov Manor, we'll bring back Standard Showdown for players not familiar with that program. This includes a weekly Standard play program held at the local WP and game stores, special promos and other prizes for players who participate and win, a special oversized card for retailers who successfully complete a number of these designated events. Starting with the Lost Caverns of Ixalan, we'll be shifting store championships to Standard constructed, giving players an additional chance to compete at the local game store for exciting promos and prizes. So let's kind of break that down. Basically, they're going back to the old model of things. And again, for those of us who've been around the block for a while, nothing real new here. They would basically give incentives to these WPN stores to fire a lot of Standard tournaments, and they would basically just give these promos out. Like back in the day, Fatal Push was one. Now, granted, they've talked about that being a mistake at the time because they said it brought out the wrong type of players, meaning us competitive players. They wanted it to be a combination of competitive and casual, not just the competitive players kind of pub stomping of the casuals, as it were. In any case, they're going to bring back some of those promos. Now, we'll have to wait to see what those are. Are they worth it? Are they important? That's something to be determined. But it's interesting to see that they're bringing that back. And the one thing I do want to touch on is this part where it says, oversized cards for retailers. That part I just want to touch on and say, game stores are already having some trouble sometimes moving some product because of Wizards of the Coast, overprinting products nowadays, or printing things so close to each other, it becomes a little harder to manage. And their thank you to these stores who do, try to revitalize this basically dead format in Standard is to give them an oversized card. I'm not saying they have to give them the world or anything, but I just think that's a little silly. I mean, it's fine. It's nothing that I'm gonna shout at the clouds over, but it's just a little silly to me. You'd think they give them like a box of something, like a mystery booster or whatever, for free, something they can monetarily make money off of, and not some oversized card, whatever. Anyway, this is a little nitpick, but basically, I do think that most of this is a win, and the play group that I participate in a lot, we're mostly players who play a lot of older formats. Specifically, Modern is the main focus around here. Some of us also play Legacy, or we have a small group of us who are really, aficionados and Pioneer. And so we like those formats. But the thing of it is that Standard is what really is the lifeblood of Magic, if we're being honest. It's what keeps boosters selling out. It's what keeps competitive players having to, re-edge themselves over and over again, grinding themselves against what new sets are coming out, what new strategies are coming out. It's kind of it's a good history of what the game has been, and it's one of those things where it's been sad, at least to me, to see it die. Now, in full transparency, I haven't been a big proponent or participator in standard events since around 2015, 2016. That was around the cutoff time when I really just stopped playing in a lot of the standard events, mostly just because I became enthralled with Modern, and that just became the format that I focused all my energy on. But at the same time, there were times when I really missed it. I would love to play Standard. I just didn't think it looked very fun, at least from the decks I saw being, popular. But I still like to watch the coverage on Pro Tours. Like, even if I wasn't invested in the format, I always watched the Pro Tours. And that's really what kept me up to date with what's going on in Standard right now. What deck's really popular. I mean, I could check this out on websites, but it was more fun to see, play out on the highest stages. So I did like to watch that. And also, you had to, be prepared to play Standard if you had to. Like, even though, again, I wasn't really invested in the format, I did have a lot of Standard cards. And this was because I had to be ready for it, because the whole point of being a competitive player was to play at high levels. I mean, you're trying to make it to the Pro Tour, which usually meant having to play Standard. So it's something you had to be prepared for and ready to battle with, more or less. So it's been kind of sad to see that, since people want to blame the pandemic, and the pandemic absolutely 100% had a large effect on Standard play, but this started years before that. Essentially, Magic Standard format has been on a slow crawl towards death for years. Around 2017, 2018, it began to kind of fall in popularity, and since then it's just been declining, and the pandemic was just its death nail, and it just kind of buried it. And a lot of the players who did enjoy Standard, who still enjoy Standard, just moved over to Arena play because it was just so much easier, smoother. You could play from home. You didn't have to worry about, dragging yourself out here or there to get a few games in. You also didn't have to worry about the event firing, because after Wizards opened up stores to be able to fire whatever formats they want for FNM, although personally I love that change, I also have to acknowledge that change really just kind of screwed over Standard, because I mean, if you can play with the most powerful cards in the last couple decades, would you rather do that, or would you rather play cards from the last 2 or 3 years? It's just, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You're going to want to play the more powerful cards rather. So it's one of those things where you can see why people would make the move towards older formats, but at the same time it's sad, because I'm the kind of person that I don't want things to be stale. I like to shake it up and play multiple different things. So my favorite type of Magic is when I can play, Modern for several weeks or months at a time, and then maybe dive into Pioneer, and then after that for a few months dive into Standard, and then after that maybe I take a little break from Commander Sign and go more into Commander. I will switch back and forth, throughout time, just like depending on my mood. Or maybe even like, a lot of Sealed super fun, or, Draft, whatever it may be. These types of things make the game so much more versatile, because you can just play it in different ways, and it doesn't have to feel stale all the time. So it's just one of those things where I have missed Standard. I've missed enjoying Standard more specifically, and I think that they're starting to take the steps. I mean, clearly they're taking steps to try to move in a direction to try to make Standard a thing again. And, that makes me happy, especially since they're starting at the, WPN level, starting with local game stores. I think that's where you gotta start. So we'll see how it does. A lot of the group of people that I know aren't really going to be, gung-ho about switching over to playing Standard, because they're so invested in, again, these older formats. It's just like, why? But we'll see. Hopefully they'll move over. Hopefully they'll like the variety. In any case, moving on. So as far as the next thing that they announced qualifier play. So this is more on the competitive side. This is more stuff for, this channel and what we're kind of about. So let's kind of focus on this next. At MagicCon Chicago in February of 24, we'll hold a $75,000 Standard Open, similar to the limited opens held at MagicCon Barcelona and MagicCon Las Vegas. The $75K Standard Open in Chicago will be the first large open field Standard tournament in quite some time. Very true. With significant prize money and Pro Tour invitations on the line, which I love that. This gives the format a chance to shine and offers anyone who wants to compete in Standard a chance to play. Running through March, the third round of the 23-24 seasonal regional championship qualifiers will be Standard, and the global regional championship round immediately following the Pro Tour, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, will feature the Standard format. After several big events and ongoing in-store programs, a large swath of players all around the world will get their chance to put their Standard chops to the test in the global regional championship round. So basically they're saying that they're going to focus a lot more of the higher competitive level stuff and the stuff that cues you for those events on Standard play, which I think is both, again, kind of like the last thing, a double-edged sword. It's both really exciting, but also, kind of sad. Sad for me just because I've really fallen in love with Pioneer. And again, I know I'm not like the only one out there, but I'm also not in the majority. A lot of players, at least from what I've seen, from other players' perspective, at least what it seems like the room temperature seems to say is that they're not that excited about Pioneer, at least around here. But I personally am. I love the format, and I want to see it thrive. So it's a little sad to me that they're going to be diminishing some of those type of events in order to play Standard. But at the same time, it also excites me because we haven't seen Standard played on the high level like that in quite a long time. It actually really surprised me when they announced that for Las Vegas that they were going to be doing the limited opens. Like, I and also, of course, Barcelona, that just, it blew my mind. It's like, you have the chance right here to make it Standard. Why aren't you making it Standard? It makes no sense. Clearly they had a plan, they were implementing it slowly, I suppose, but what have you, that still baffles my mind that they didn't just start this earlier. But regardless, moving forward, they are clearly showing that they know that they do need to start doing that, which is good news in my opinion. I want to see them do this. Like I said, I want to see Standard succeed. I want to see it back on the high stages. Some of my favorite moments in Magic came from watching, Pro Tours. I'm not a big sports fan, so I don't get that joy that a lot of people do on like Sundays or Thursdays or whatever when their sports team is playing or what have you. But I do get that same type of feeling when I watch a Magic Pro Tour. I'll root for some of my favorite players. I like to watch them, play. There's nail-biting moments that happen where you're sitting there watching and wondering, what's going to happen, who's going to win, is the player I really want to win going to make it? That's all exciting and that's fun. So I love seeing it happen, and I'm glad that Standard is moving into that position again because I want Wizards of the Coast to succeed. I want even though I may hate on some of the decisions they make, I want the company overall to succeed because they make the game that I think is the best game in the world and that I love playing. So I want to see them do well, and I want to see Standard succeed because, again, I want more opportunities for more types of players to be able to play in more formats. So I love that they're doing this, and in fact, they're doing 75K Open. That's going to be awesome. I'm glad to see them doing this, and overall, just really happy with that part of the announcement. Again, a little sad that we're going to get less higher events for Pioneer, but happy overall with the change. Moving on to the last part for Pro Tour play. So for Pro Tour play, they're saying Pro Tour Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the second Pro Tour of the 24 season, will feature Standard as a constructor format of the event. It will, of course, be fully covered. With this slate of play opportunities combined with a more enjoyable Standard environment, now is the time to start honing your Standard skills. Healthy Standard play is vital to thrive in game stores. Completely agree. And we believe this slate of play, plus more improvements to come, excited to see what that's going to be, or anxious, depending, is the next step in helping stores provide this engaging Standard content no matter what level you game at. While we continue to want to hear from you, okay, that's just them telling you, talk to them, shout at them. What have you. But anyway, basically they're saying, dude, this is our plan so far. We're going to see Pro Tours at the high level with Standard. We're going to see regional championships at the high level. We're going to see RCQs at the high level. And we're going to get Standard FNM type of style events firing also to try to revitalize the format. So I really like that overall. And I think this announcement shows that they are listening to feedback. They are understanding they need to do something to revitalize Standard, because otherwise it's just going to die. It's just going to become another forgotten artifact like so many other things, like Artifact. Anyway, guys, that's my thoughts, guys. I just kind of wanted to tell you what I felt, seeing this announcement, hearing it, and knowing what's to come. Like I said, I'm a little sad to see some of the Pioneer events and other such stuff, diminishing a little bit. But I'm excited overall because I want Sandra to succeed. I really do. And I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. If you guys choose to comment, I'd love to hear from you, hear your thoughts, see what you're thinking, see what you're feeling. Get the temperature of the room. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Make sure to comment, subscribe, share. Keep the channel growing. We're a small channel, but we're trying. We're trucking along. And until next time, everybody. See ya.